Everybody, good afternoon. Putting the slide deck in our chat if you wanted to follow along in that and not on the screen here. Thank you all for being here today. It's good to see you. I know it's been a minute since we've done a web users group, but we will trudge through and we will have time for Q&A today as well. This is what our agenda looks like for today. We'll talk about some digital accessibility, the WCMS retirement timeline, some updates about News.ucsc.edu, a theme release we just released, and we'll have time for Q&A at the tail end. Hi, my name's Adam Hillsmeyer, if we haven't met. I know there's some new folks in here too. For folks who have no, low, or limited vision or don't have their screen on right now, just audio only, I'm a male. I'm in my home office right now. The background behind me is just a UCSC background, so you can't really see anything else there, but welcome. I'm glad you're here. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping for today. Auto captions are available. They're down in the Zoom menu. Just a reminder that auto captions are not the same as equitable access. Thank you. We'll turn those on for you. They don't replace the need for real-time translations. You can turn them on again in your Zoom menu. If at any point during this meeting you experience an accessibility barrier, please reach out to myself. And I'll also note that the report an accessibility barrier link is in the footer of your websites now too. I certainly encourage you and your team members to report any issues that you see or you have when it comes to accessibility at ucsc.edu. So let me share the ground rules in chat, as well as the acknowledgement of the land that we are on. And I realize we're a lot of remote folks, but the UCSC institution that we're at is on a location. And hold on one second while I grab this for chat. Okay. We shared the land acknowledgement so we can think about personal and institutional commitments to a shared future together. We'll have a couple different folks from University Advancement coming on a little later today to talk about some of the updates. And again, we'll have time for Q&A. But first, I wanted to start talking about digital accessibility and some updates that are coming along. On May 15th, there was an event called GAD, or Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It's something that, well, lots of universities participate in. Here was the UC system event that happened. And they have lots of sessions where they talk about digital accessibility. This one, they talked about AI, the legal landscape, best practices. And I'll certainly share back once they caption all the videos. I think there was some really good stuff in there. But one of the concepts that kept showing up was this idea of fully and meaningfully engaging. And that's what I wanted to talk about briefly here when it comes to digital accessibility and talk about what we're doing at UCSC. How we create our digital content often dictates whether or not everyone can not only technically engage with our digital content, but whether they can meaningfully engage in that. And I think meaningful means that like our users can understand what we're talking about, that it's clear, and that it's easy to use. And for us as content creators, that revolves around things like the language that we use, how complex we make our web designs, how much information we expect our users to consume at one time, the images that we use, whether they're in context, whether they have alt text to the information that we display, and the way that we display our information. We have things like complex images, graphs, tables, multimedia. We have courses that we share that are digital. We have documents that we share with people and the technology that we choose to use on our websites. Those are all parts, I think, of the ways that we make experiences that people can engage with. And one of the things that we've done in ITS is create some new guidance content to kind of centralize how we want to go about that. And we've created some new guide material called Make It Accessible, or Make IT, Information Technology, Accessible. This is a new guide, and I'll share these back out. You don't necessarily have to track these right now. We'll share them back out in our recap email, but this is kind of like one of the foundational pieces. We've had some of this information around. It just hasn't been like grouped into like a central place to say, oh, Those are the things that we need to do when we talk about digital accessibility with our websites. And this is our attempt to try and centralize that a little better. So we have like a shared standard of how we want to approach things. And one of the pieces in there, it includes digital accessibility fundamentals. I highly recommend, even if like you're a seasoned veteran here, it's a good thing to go review and just take a look at some of the items that are in there. And it includes a checklist. And with that, I'll kind of transition into this concept that we're rolling into a digital accessibility program, much like the web improvement program that we conducted here to roll out WordPress as our new content management system. There's going to be another program coming down the road based on new federal regulations and new policy. And it's going to start next year, early next year. And the federal regulations cover things like digital content. And digital content means a lot of things. It's essentially the things that we do with our websites. And what it applies to lots of things. And it's pretty broad, this new federal regulation. It talks about email, social media, all the courses, every single document that we might use when we buy new technology as well, too. There are going to be increased regulations as to what we do. If you want the background on this, this is all circling around the ADA, and they have a fact sheet that talks about why these regulations came into play, what we'll be doing in the near future. And one of the pieces that we'll be doing is a campus-wide training component on accessibility and ableism that'll be in collaboration with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I kind of wanted to kind of quick recap, like, all right, April 2026, it's not that far off, actually. And if that means like all of our websites and all of our email and social media, all these things need to be in compliance, that's a lot of work to do, right? So what does it mean? Yes, so soon, it's coming. This is what we might call a logic model. We've put this together with the program to kind of like summarize the strategy from the things that we have, our inputs at UCSC, to the impact that we want to make when it comes to digital accessibility. One of the outcomes of the program will be the understanding that there's a shared responsibility. That means if you create digital content, and as they define that, that is text, websites, images, sounds, videos, documents, social media, you have a responsibility in this space. And that, I think, circles back to the idea of equal access or allowing everybody to fully and meaningfully participate in this. A lot of the activities that we're going to launch our digital accessibility program with are listed as domain-specific projects. So we know that there are courses we teach at UCSC. We have courses that need to be accessible, and there are spaces that are already working to make those things accessible. The DRC does a lot of work in that space already, and they're part of this program as well. There's classroom technology, websites and applications. That probably applies to us a lot. Electronic documents and then procurement, the way we buy technology moving forward on campus. There's a lot of pieces to this, but I want to share at this point that we have structure about how to take us from where we are to the state that we want to be in when it comes to digital accessibility. And just note that while there is federal regulation, I still believe that digital accessibility is the right thing to do for us. We do have a required commitment to it, but I think like this is the path that we want to go. So we can have this impact that everybody can participate and contribute fully and equally to their experience at UCSC. Think about that, explore that Make It Accessible guides and that fact sheet, and we'll circle back if you've got other questions in the Q&A section to move forward. Let's switch gears and talk about the WCMS transition, which is another big part of our work here that we've been doing. So we've updated the timeline to look like this. On August 15th, we're going to have, we usually ask for a month to turn a website around. So when you submit that, please launch my website. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks for us to generate that report, to coordinate the launch, to do all the work behind the scenes to make sure your site goes live. So if I skip ahead to October 1st, that's essentially going to be the new cutoff deadline. We were originally saying the end of summer 2025, and now we're putting a hard date on it on October 1st. And what that means is just that WCMS is going offline. There will not be access to those sites. If you have content in WCMS and you want to retain those things, you should consume that now and retain that in some fashion or another because WCMS, and I'm putting two underlines under this, it goes offline. There will not be access to it. I know we've got feedback saying there'll still be access to it, right? You'll still have something. And the answer is no, that thing is going offline. That is the cutoff. And that's why we're saying August 15th. That'll give us about a month. And we do expect, people going right up to the last day to say, please launch my website so it doesn't go offline in between this time. We're going to need at least a month and some change to make sure that we don't let that happen. We do have some risk mitigation planning for what happens if a lot of people wait until that August 15th date. That's going to create a backlog, and that might mean there's not going to be guarantees and guarantees of continuity of the websites, that is. That said, there will still be reviews conducted before launch, and the rule still stands that we will not be launching inaccessible websites as we move forward. With that, IT leadership is also coordinating with principal officers across the campus to make sure that they also have transparency about this timeline. We've communicated this out to web liaisons rather, and we're making sure we want to hit this here too with this group. That's a big topic to absorb there. And with that, we're also tracking what does it look like in our current state right now. We've launched almost 100 sites in UCSC WordPress now, and the number of sites that are still remaining in WCMS keeps dropping. And thank you for that. I want to know that that work is acknowledged and seen, and I know it's not small. So with that, I'm just saying this is our current state right now, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us moving forward. And I just want to again thank you for efforts in that space. We'll keep ticking along here. And if you've got questions about that, feel free to drop them in chat or park them and we'll address them in the Q&A. Let's talk news and the UCSC news block. And with that, I'm bringing in Rob or Jason, maybe both.
It's me to start.
Okay, Rob, I'll pass the mic to you and I will stop. Do you want to share too?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Knight from the communications team in University Advancement. And as Adam did before, for those with low vision or with their screens turned off, I am a bearded white man wearing a headset with wearing glasses. And in my background is a lovely autumn photo of the Arkansas River. I'm going to talk about the News Center. Hopefully everyone here who runs a website is aware that the News Center got a big update on April 23rd. We went from a WCMS site to WordPress, which not only updates the platform and moves us to a more modern setup, but also enables a whole lot of tools and additional features that we're looking forward to sharing with you both today and into the future as we begin and continue to build on top of this WordPress platform that most of us share now. So I'm going to just share my screen just so you have something to look at. Oh, I have to have permission.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
You're good.
Okay. Just so you don't have to listen to me talk, but also have something to look at. I'm sharing the homepage of the new News Center. We've got some wonderful visuals now, and one of the features of the News Center is that we can share nice large images. All of our writers can upload the biggest images they can get their hands on, and we can display them in all kinds of different ways. So that's a huge new feature of the News Center. What I want to share relevant for this group here is we're going to do a couple of demos, and Jason, I'll invite in here in a minute to do a demo for how you would share news content from this site onto your site, as you're probably used to doing from WCMS in a more limited capacity. But I wanted to just talk through a few things here on the new News Center and then talk about also one thing that we're continuing to work on. So you'll notice there's a lot of nice visuals to look at, hopefully easy to read, easy to navigate. Two things I want to point out are the on-campus page. So that is directed right at all of us here, staff, faculty, the campus community. So as you come to the news center, there's a page that is really tailored to us as UCSC staff and faculty and students. The other one is a dedicated page. We had this before, but it wasn't linked in the main navigation to media coverage, which is stories about UCSC published by other outlets. So those are two that I wanted to make sure everyone knew about. We've also divided up news and created some new categories that are broader and thematic. Those are called topics. We've got this easy to explore menu for looking at stories within different topics. They don't go back all time. So as we add new stories, they're being categorized here. So but I encourage everyone to take a look because it is pretty cool to see how UCSC excels in all of these topics. The other one I want to point out is news by division. These are all of the academic structure of the campus, and the stories are categorized. And these do go back all time. These are coming over from the WCMS service. We also have other ways that stories are being categorized, and we will add pages to show the same kind of overview for categories as the academic divisions and explore topics. We also have one for people. We have one for free tags, just kind of all kinds of different categorization using tagging. And then we also have one for the administrative structure of the campus. And again, we will continue to build out pages that show and reveal those category systems as well so that they're easy to find. Just as a quick tip, every category page that you're on, if you just fling feed onto the end of it, becomes the RSS feed for that page. So whereas before we had a very discrete page that said RSS and got updated sometimes, if you do need an RSS feed, you can go to any category page and add feed onto the end and get a feed. But you probably won't even need that because simultaneously with the release of this site, we released the news block, which is a new way of adding stories from our news center onto your site. And to demo that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason from my team.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Let's see. My name is Jason Chafin. I'm the senior web developer for the University Advancement. For you doesn't know, I'm a middle-aged guy, receding hairline. I've got guitars in the background. I don't have a fancy wallpaper, so you guys are looking at my living room here. So yeah, like what Rob said, we've got a new block that will allow you to pull in stories from the news site onto your respective websites. And I've got a bit of a demo here. I'll share my screen. Okay, let's see if this works. So I've got a mock-up of like a landing page that I might want to pull in some news. And I'm going to try and put it right in between this header, this text here and the engaging subhead area. So what I'll do is I'll edit this page. And I'll stick my cursor in here. And now you can see we've got a new item called news block right here. You can also just start typing news, or you can use the block inserter, do the same thing. So I'm going to select the news block. And right away, it's going to give you some instructions to, select your taxonomy and terms. And those are going to be done over here in this right column. So you can add a title. And you can add a description. and you can align it left or right. Now, you'll notice that these guys haven't come in yet because what we need to do first is select our taxonomy on what we're going to pull in. And I'm going to stick with categories here. And our categories are our topics. So I'm going to go with, actually, scratch that. I'm going to go with academic divisions here. Maybe you guys are all, and you want to get, I would want to get maybe some anthropology stories here. You can combine terms here, but for this exercise, I'm just going to keep it with one. And then you can choose between 3, 6, or 9 posts. So I'm going to select the 3. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of a delay, but you'll see that they finally pull in. I've got some options here on the right, so I can, hide or show the featured image, the category, the excerpt, all of these items. I'm going to point out one bug that we are working on right now. It's the author. We're getting double authors in here, and that we hope to have a fix coming shortly. So what we're suggesting here is just to go ahead and hide the author as your default. And so then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to keep it with 3 here. I'm going to point out this. Now we've got this more news link. And so since I'm pulling in anthropology, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this real quick. And I'm going to go over to our news by division and just select the anthropology archive. And I'm going to copy that. And then I'll put that in my more news link. I've already done this one twice before. And so we have a a more news link. It's saving, of course. Of course, it's choking on me now. Let's see if I can do a refresh. Let's see what we got. Okay. Save. View the page. Did I hit it? Let's just go over here. And now what I have is a list of, like I said, 3, 6, or 9 latest news items from whatever our taxonomies and however you want to mix and match. One thing I'll point out is that there isn't a lot of spacing and padding options for the block itself. So if you wanted to tighten some of this up, what I recommend is go over here into your document area and just real simply add this to a group. And what that does here is it gives you some padding and margin options that you can kind of tighten up a little bit. So you can adjust it easier if it's in a group. And that's basically it. So you should see this in your block chooser presently, I believe.
Yep. The news block has been available since about the 24th or 25th of April on Campus Press. So if you're managing your site, you should be able to open up a page and in the block chooser, select the news block. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. So the news block is a great tool for having a continuously updated feed of the most recent news stories from the news center displayed on your site. Homepage is where we usually recommend, but you can use it anywhere. Another way to share news content on your page, let's say there's a story from several years ago, and you've got a page related to that story on your website, and you want to share a link to that news story on that page. There's another way of sharing stuff like that, and that is through an embed. And an embed is essentially in WordPress, it's copying and pasting a link from the news center into your WordPress page. And what happens is behind the scenes magic stuff. Don't quote me on that. Uh, it creates this nicely formatted embedded link to the story, which has the title, the featured image, the teaser, and then the source, a link to the site. And then, of course, this is a link to the story and then a nice little sharing widget as well. But if you were to create a page on your site that's maybe about this particular story and you're adding some context or anything, really, you could always just paste the URL from that news story. And I'll just go ahead and we'll do it here. Let's just find anything. Not that one. This one. So I'm going to go to this story and I'm just going to copy the URL. And if I scroll down here and paste, you can see that behind the scenes, WordPress has gone and fetched this thing and is sharing it in this nice card format. So this is a great way to share an individual story. If you have a collection of stories that are on the News Center that maybe aren't in chronological order or they're related to a particular topic and you're trying to highlight that topic on the page you're creating, this is a great way to do one-off story sharing in a way that's really pleasant and looks nice and everything else. So I'll stop there. Those are the two new features of the News Center that came out with the launch. And any questions we can handle during the Q&A, or I'll be in the chat. And if you have any other questions, just let us know.
Awesome. We dropped in chat to some documentation that we've created too about how to use the news block that covers many of these ideas, but a nice way to kind of like custom grouping your news stories is what you were showing there, Rob. Like to create your own order and feed of that. Awesome. Thanks so much. I think we'll move on to the theme update next. And I think, Rob, that comes back to you too.
That is also me.
Yep.
All right, so we do have find. Do have a theme update that came out a couple weeks ago. Another one is going to come out here shortly. Now that we're our news team is done with the news launch, we can turn our attention back to some of the more pressing things related to the theme. The big marquee thing from the last theme update was styles for form elements for anyone who's using Facet WP to create filtering tools on a particular page for a long list of posts. That usually included form elements, and WordPress by default doesn't include any styles for form elements, and we didn't realize that, and also didn't have them accounted for in the theme before a couple of weeks ago. So now most common theme elements are styled and hopefully look okay. If you have a page that's using Facet WP and has some of those little drop downs, search fields, or radio buttons, checkboxes, anything that's using form elements to invoke Facet WP features, that should look a lot better. And let us know if you're not seeing those changes. They should be in there. The other thing that not that. Let's go to a different page. The other thing that we released with the theme upgrade a few weeks ago, or about 2 weeks ago now, was just going to create a new page here. Is a block that we call aligned image.
Are you going to share
I
your
won't.
screen, Rob?
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Apologies. Very sorry about that. Sorry, I gotta drag it below all the Zoom stuff. That means you were not seeing me talk about form fields. So I'm gonna go back here real quick and just scroll through form fields again. These are the default styles for all the form elements. And again, if something's not looking correct on your screen or on your web page where you're using fastest WP or have a form, let us know. Most or all form elements should have a default style now. All right, sorry about that. My mistake. I'm going to create a new page here. And the other thing I was going to demonstrate, without getting too technical, I'll just say that aligning an image in WordPress can be a little bit tricky. You put an image on the page, if you select a left or right alignment, by default, WordPress just flings it off to the left or the right side of the browser window. Doesn't like extend and then stop going off to the left or the right. It will just go all the way to the left or the right. We were noticing our writers in communications and their news articles struggling with that, and we had struggled to figure it out in the past. So what we did was just decided, okay, we will let WordPress do what it's going to do, and we decided to create a block that helps with this. So it's called the aligned image block. If you do a search for image, it will also show up, although I guess it's a little lower in the list, but the aligned image block is pretty simple. All it is an image block that's inside of a group. And that gives you the ability, as Jason described with the news block, to align it left or right without it exploding out to the left or right side of the page. So I'm going to put I've got my image in here. You can see I chose the aligned image block, but basically all it is a group with an image block in it. It's just nice to have that all set up for you so you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to justify this to the left. It's kind of hard to see what's going on unless I get some text in here. So I'm also going to put some text in here. And I'll just drag this image a little bit up here. And I'm going to change this image size. Wait, not that. There we go. Okay. Now I publish this page, you can see I've got this image nicely wrapped around the text, and it's to the left, but it's not all the way to the left or busting out of the page width. So that is the aligned image block. That and the form element styles are the big part of the last release. And again, now that some of us are done working on the news website, more releases to come. And last thing I wanted to say is just thanks to our news website team. They were patient, amazing, did a lot of work, and really grateful for that team, which helped us get that project complete.
Awesome, good stuff. I can clearly see like a use case if you're writing like a news or a blog post and you want that inline image with that. There may be other use cases on your sites to combine that too. Great. Let us, unless there's anything other on theme release, that sounds like we're clear there.
If I could take like 30 more seconds,
Yeah.
I'll just say one thing that we did. So we're always looking for ways to just kind of push the boundaries of what we can do with our websites. And we found a 4-line style rule that allows us to opt into something called view transitions. So as you're clicking around UCSC WordPress websites and other websites that are using the theme, you might notice a smoother transition between pages. And that is because of some modern technology we're able to opt into. We also made it for accessibility reasons, we made it only if you are okay with light animations. So if you have animations turned off, you may not see this this new transition. But as you're clicking around, you might see a smoother transition between pages. Very subtle, very calming, I guess. And it's always nice to be able to do that for the theme, because then that happens across all sites. And so it's a little user experience improvement, and those are the kinds of things that we love to do too. No, most people may not even notice, but there's just a slightly calming transition between pages now, and I'm glad we're able to do that too. And I'm done.
Okay, awesome. So I think at this point we'll do kind of like a break here and switch to Q&A. If you want to stick around for Q&A, I want to be respectful of everyone's time here too. Please do stick around, and we'll work through the chat right now with questions. But also, if you have other priorities too, understand that as well. And this is an okay, what would you say, departure, disjuncture, disembarking space. So we'll let that happen, and let's hop right into the Q&A. Heidi noted, if historical stories are coming over from WCMS, are they going to be lost after October 15th? Are they being transferred? And Rob, you hopped in saying this is in process.
If historical stories are coming from over to, are they going to be lost? No, all stories are in WordPress. And I did get in there and just say sorry for the confusion. Yeah, all of our stories are in WordPress because we created some new taxonomic systems, some new categories in WordPress. Not all of the stories are categorized with the new categories, but all of the stories from WCMS are in WordPress. Additionally, some stories that were straight HTML on servers under someone's desk going back to 1996 are also in WordPress. So the new news center is a comprehensive collection of all news stories, nearly all that have ever been published by the communications office at UCSC, but pretty close. Still working on that part.
Okay, thank you. Brecky responded to this in chat. Can we have an automated system to archive old WCMS sites into a zip file so we can keep it in a nutshell? There's a couple issues with this. The quick answer is no. This is not a service we offer right now, which is why we're recommending, if you need to pull things down, do that now, in between now and October 1st. There is a way to look at old versions of your websites on the Internet Archive or the Wayback Machine, and we link that in there, and you'll be able to go back and see versions of the site. But we don't have resources right now to do this broad spread for all WCMS websites. There are questions about archiving websites and keeping records of things that bring up legal considerations as well too. You know, we've had a couple conversations, I think, in Web Users Group about archiving websites and whether that should happen or not. Libraries is the official archivist for UCSC, and they do archive some websites, but not every website on campus. They have a threshold and consider what they keep and retain, but they essentially just default to the Internet Archive as well too for everyone else if you want to go get that historical record for it. So in a nutshell, the quick answer is no, that won't be a service that we'll be providing, but there are ways to go get your information as well. And, you know, planning ahead of time for it, I think, is the best one. Jamie was asking, yeah, this is a very common question, Jamie. Migrating content from WCMS into WordPress, is this like copy paste? Can I export things? WCMS does not allow an easy export of their platform into WordPress, which means there is a lot of copy pasting work that could be happening. I'll just, you know, say again, like, that's opportunity, I think, to review content. And that's a good time to review what you have and see, like, is this a value content? Do we need to reformat those things? And is a direct copy paste the best solution? at this point. So yeah, that's it. It takes a little more, but like that's a better strategy, I think, moving forward with that. And thank you, Jason, for responding there too. Yeah, and images that were in WCMS, so you can actually technically scroll and copy all the images and text on a WCMS page, go into your WordPress editor and do Control V, and it will drop everything, including what looks like the image in there, except that image is linked back to the old website. So you still need to update that image. You need to upload that to your WordPress site in that process. And that's one of the, yeah.
In some cases, you will see a button that says, should I go get those for you and add them to your media library? If you see that button, just mash it because it's a great idea. And WordPress is trying to do as much as it can to make your life easier. So it is, like Adam said, it's really straightforward to just go copy the text and images, basically the content area from your published page, paste it into the WordPress editor and just see what happens. A lot of the time it's getting it right. It'll even convert the different HTML tags, paragraphs, headings, lists, and other into their corresponding WordPress blocks. And so you end up with, a semantically correct WordPress page simply by copying and pasting. It doesn't happen all the time, and I do recommend that you open up the little panel on the left that shows you all the blocks just to make sure that you didn't get something weird in there. But WordPress is trying to help you as much as it can.
Mhm. I'll do a callback to, because since you mentioned it, Rob, semantically correct. That is it's a developer and it's an accessibility term. And it's kind of a callback to those digital fundamentals that we talked about earlier in the website. Semantically correct means your heading levels are in order. It goes 1, 2, 3, H1 to H2, 3, 4, or up and down the ladder, as you would suggest, by like one at a time. You don't jump from an H1 to an H4 on your page. The reason being is that people who use assistive technologies can understand that context a little better. So, and that's part of our design as we create those things. And WCMS can help, in that process, as Rob was just saying, if you copy paste into it, but always check your work.
And I know there is definitely somebody in here who's thinking, but I don't like the way H2s look, so I'm going to make it an H3. And I'm here to tell you that unlike WCMS, we have decoupled the appearance settings from the headline settings. So if you put an H2, which is correct on your page, followed by an H3, but you don't like the way the H3 looks, you can go into the right panel, the appearance settings for that block, and you can make it look a little different. Do I recommend that? No, but you can do it and it is okay. We have tried to set these things with default styles so that they fit their location and they adhere and they look right for the hierarchy. But in some cases, there are instances, particularly on home pages, where it makes sense to use an H3 or an H4 even because of where you're at on the page and the content you're displaying, but it doesn't quite look right in its default setting. You can make appearance changes to a heading that are independent of the heading level. So we recommend that you always set the correct heading level and then go and make appearance changes if you need to.
Rob, I have a question related to that. I haven't poked around too much with the H2 versus H3 in WordPress, but I know in WCMS, like the H2 and the H3 look pretty identical. I mean, it's a minuscule difference, like 1 point font or something. Is that the same in WCMS with the CSS, or is there more of a marked difference within WordPress?
In WCMS, yeah, in WCMS it's fixed, and you're right. I do remember that. I have to like jog my WCMS styles memory. In WordPress, I believe it's different. Someone else may be able to answer, but we did try to set a visual hierarchy. We did some research on typographic setup. The other thing about WordPress is that we've done some like screen width dependent font sizing. So as the screen width decreases, the font size changes accordingly, and that's so that everything scales. So things are going to look a little different between a desktop window and a mobile phone window, but they should be relatively different from each other no matter what. If you find that an H2 and an H3 are too close together or they don't look different enough, let us know. Like we can always, we're happy to like look at anything that folks are concerned about, especially when it comes to appearance, because we don't want you to like choose something different, you know, that isn't, again, semantically correct, which is just like, is the text structured so that its meaning is clear? A headline is a headline. It's very common, or it was common in the past, to, instead of a headline tag, use a paragraph tag and make it bold. Looks like a headline, but to Google indexing the page, to a screen reader or assistive technology, it's not a headline. And so some of the features that those tools use to infer meaning aren't don't function correctly. So that's why we're trying to encourage and facilitate the use of headings where appropriate, and give all the text on the page semantic meaning. And so if you're seeing something that is visually inconsistent, definitely let us know.
Thank you. And Adam, thanks for posting that link. That's very helpful context.
You bet, Megan. Yeah. We'll hop into the next comment. This is about news articles being tagged. If the campus news article is not tagged with our department, but it should be, who do we talk to? Call Rob's personal cell phone, right?
Yeah, 831-332. No, find the writer. I mean, we have tried to make contact information for every story front and center. There is a inquiries area. So if, for instance, someone wrote a story, but the contact person is different, we've tried to make that obvious as well. I would say like the person attached to the story, the creator of the story, contact them, and they will. It's something that we're really focused on, is getting things categorized correctly. And so if you see something that's not working correctly, definitely contact the person who created it. And if you don't hear back from them, contact me. If you don't hear back from me, contact Jason. We'll get it fixed. Promise.
Indeed. Jamie, where should we go for basic orientation to WordPress usage? Who can we email if we need support with our WordPress process? We have a training selection on getting started with WordPress that's on the training page. I'll put it one more time in the full chat. I think I just put it in the individual chat there. That's a good place to get started with just getting started with WordPress. We have a self-guided YouTube playlist. I realize that LinkedIn Learning might not be long for this campus, but we still have access for the moment. And we also have some guides and walkthroughs from LinkedIn Learning, which I think does a pretty decent job of that 101. If you need support with WordPress processes, there is another place that we can point you. We have self-service guidance. We have things called open labs where you can come each week. There's actually an open lab later today where you can come and ask questions that can be anywhere from 101 to like super technical deep questions. We try to field all questions as best we can in those. And that's where I would point that to. Hopefully that's helpful. And Tony notes, the redirect strategy, about Safe Redirect Manager. Thank you, Rob, for plugging that in there. We do have a bit of guidance on redirects as well, too, as to where and when to use. Let me quick grab that.
Yeah, the redirect tool in WordPress is quite a bit easier to use than how to create redirects in WCMS.
I'll put this into chat here, Tony, too, about using redirects. Okay. Let me know if that answers the question, Tony. Hopefully that's helpful. Ronnie asks, is there a way to create custom directories in the media library versus just by the date things are uploaded?
Oh, not yet. And this is a question, I think, going back a year or so now. In WordPress land, we tend to kind of try to read the tea leaves and see what we should, what feature requests we should try to accommodate with a plugin or a custom code or something, versus where WordPress might go with the core software product. So what we're concerned about with the media library is that I think that something like that is coming to WordPress natively. And so if we were to add a plugin now, we might not be able to adopt that native feature set in the future. I don't know how much longer we should wait for that. It's something that we're going to go back and start researching again, but we know that's a pain point, and I'm sorry. Other than like, yeah, searching through there by month or something like that, it's kind of hard. I will say that the search field in the media library works pretty well. If there's any bit of text attached to your image, it makes it pretty findable. We have something on the order of 80,000 images in our media library, and I have been impressed with the ability to find things in it. But it would also be easier if we could create custom folders. So we are still looking into that. Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
I would just add in the meantime, like I've just been really careful about naming the images that I upload, and that will help you so much if when you upload things, you don't just leave that like gobbledygook of letters and numbers that it has when you take a picture on your phone or whatever. If you actually put like if there's a faculty in it, like the name of the faculty, or like students doing something descriptive that you can use in the search bar later is super helpful when you're trying to find images later.
Not only that, but also, if I'm not mistaken, your media library, when you use the search function, it will search the alt text that you should be putting in for every single image on every site that you have. And if you use that descriptive alt text to describe what the image is, that can also help you with your search functions.
Yeah, these images are all, I mean, they're already named correctly. It's all from our old site. And so I'm copying the old page from WCMS. But then, of course, as you're saying, we have to upload the images. And I'd like to just upload all of our images at once. But I think what I'll do is just upload them on the same date and know that I need to look in that folder because it doesn't go back to the folder. I go to another page
Right.
and then it like wants to start fresh again. There's a lot of wrist pain with this process, I will say.
Yeah.
It's very not ergonomically friendly to my wrist to do a lot because I have to click 5 different times just to add the image that I wish would link properly. So I just was hoping there was a different way.
I'm trying to think of ways to reduce that pain.
Yeah, I've been holding out on this big bulk of stuff that has all the images, but now it's August 15th, very soon.
Yeah. I mean, in this too, this doesn't help you, but I would also think about continuity too. Eventually, at some point, we'll hand these websites off to the next person who will be maintaining them as, maybe we go on to greener pastures as well. And they might not know that date structure or that organization structure, which is why like contextual labels might be a better path to go in the first place, even if it means some heavier lifting out of the gate.
Part of the reason that that WordPress does that is because you can use an image in more than one piece of content, and if you've got like a folder in a kind of like the WCMS, if you go to use it in another piece of content, you might not know that it's in that one folder in that one story.
Can I ask a follow-up, or because it's kind of related to that? I know there's probably other questions, but I think say you have this image you use in multiple places, and then you want to change that image, that's still not a feature that it will change in all those places though, right? That's something I asked last year, but it was a feature that was denied me. So
an image in the media library is kind of a fixture. It's no different from a post. There will only ever be one post ID, and they treat images the same way. That's a WordPress
Convention.
Per WordPress convention. So you can't which a feature that I used in WCMS quite a bit, right? It's just great. You get a better higher res version of the same image, and you just
Exactly.
upload it in place and poof, everything works. It's a nice feature from WCMS, but it is not available in WordPress. And it has to do, I think, mostly with the fact that WordPress images and things in the media library are kind of also posts. They have their own page. You can download multiple versions of them. I think it's because they do a lot more. They're not just an image file on a server like they were in WCMS. So it's hard to replace them in place the same way. There's just too many other things connected to it. So apologies that you don't have that one. The one way you could get around that, and this is, a little bit more tedious, but if you have an image that is just like this one image that does get used a lot for whatever reason, you could put it in a pattern, a synced pattern. And a synced pattern it works like that WCMS kind of function where everything inside of that pattern, when you put it on a page, it's always keeping track of the central place where it came from. So if you were to edit the original version of the pattern, it changes everywhere it's ever been used. And you could just, have a pattern with an image in it. I don't know exactly how an image would qualify for that kind of usage because you wouldn't want the same image. But if you use an image, say 5 times, that's probably enough to put it in a synced pattern. And then, if you never need to update it, I guess if it was an image of like a calendar or something like that. But that's all I can think of for that.
It's a
Thank
good
you.
Yeah. A question came to me about indexing of websites and how long it takes when a new website launches for it to start showing up in search results. And Rob gently ducked out of the question. Yes, we know that this is a known issue. Know that we take steps when we go through the launch of a website to make sure that the indexing will take place as soon as possible, but also know that this is something we do not control. The Google or the other search engines control when they index sites. So it's very possible that like on a Tuesday, you might launch your site and on Wednesday, Google might not have updated search results on your site because and it might take even longer than a day. It's been said to take sometimes up to a month. And I just included a knowledge-based document because we went through this with the ITS website as well, which we just relaunched recently, that talks about what it takes when a new site launches, even if it's the same URL, for Google to crawl that site, for it to show up in search results and show up the way that you want it to as well. That takes a little bit of time. There are conditions that might confound that process too, such as broken links, mobile problems with your website, inaccessible components with your website. That could further delay that process. Another reason why we talk about accessibility first and designing for mobile design first as well too. It depends on the size of your website. It depends on the frequency of traffic to your website. There's a whole lot of dependencies, and it's not something we control. The thing that we do to make sure that this happens is when a new site is launched, we submit that sitemap to Google through a tool called Google Search Console, and that essentially tells Google to say, hey, we're ready for you to recrawl this website and look for the new structure. Google does that on its own time frame, and that's the best I can tell you. There are ways, if you want to go deeper into like how to manipulate Search Console to say, I don't want this page to show anymore, I want this page to be crawled right now. There's ways to do some individual things that we can show you how to do that, but in general, it's largely not in our hands to control that.
And I'll just add to that. Yes, we have lost any ability to understand how Google indexing and search results work. Not that we had a lot to begin with, but it's even less now. We've heard that Google isn't even choosing to index all sites. One more thing I just did want to add, though, is in future meetings, we will talk about OpenAI and ChatGPT and other chatbots and what that means for search, as we know that that is replacing or at least adding to search queries about the university and university websites. So those are things that we also need to keep in mind. Google is not the end all be all for search and indexing, and we're realizing that and seeing that and getting ready to deal with that, you know, to provide guidance and help you optimize your website for that situation.
Indeed. All right, with that, I'm going to stop recording here.